Hey out there. This is the first day of July 2016, and it's about quarter after 11 in the morning here in Northern California. And it's going to be hot as Hades outside today, so I'm doing my video indoors, or at least I've got a fan creating a breeze to cool me. Anyhow, today I'm going to get into a little bit on current events. This Brexit thing, Britain voted for basically independence from the European Union. And this is an attempt to decentralize, which is the best thing for humanity as a whole, humanity at large. And to put this in terms that people can understand, it's kind of like this. The more accessible everything you use in your daily life is, that means the more accessible, the closer it is to home, the better off that you are. The more secure you can feel that you'll be able to meet your needs, not only today, but tomorrow and all times in the future. And when you decentralize, and when you centralize everything, then the whole world becomes like just one country where you could have, the manufacture of cars could conceivably all be done in one country. And, you could see the obvious problems that could stem from such a thing happening. So the trick is to have everything as close to home as possible. I mean, if possible, it'd be nice to create everything you need or want or use right in your own yard, your own home, So ultimate decentralization would be, the greatest form of freedom and liberty and safety and security. These things go hand in hand. You're not particularly free if you don't feel secure. So that's really what this is all about. And I'm not going to go on about it too much because, this could be like something out of the book of Revelations where this multi-headed beast receives this wound or dragon, however it's described. But the wound is healed, mysteriously, whatever. It just, nobody expects this to happen. But this whole thing could turn around and this wound on the beast could be healed if somehow the will of the people is usurped by these very dictatorial, totalitarian, authoritarian powers that want to centralize everything. But, I really wanted to talk about, society in the 21st century today and how it's rife with utter and abject madness. I want to talk about, hyperbole and, what people consider hyperbole today. But, back in the day, if I had made this statement 40 years ago or so, 50 years ago, would they have thought it, hyperbolic? But today, people can see that a lot of the stuff that I talk about is not hyperbolic. For example, if I told you in 1970, when you could buy a candy bar, bigger too, if you wanted a Snickers bar in 1970, I was 12 years old, then, you'd go to your Safeway store. We still have Safeway stores. I can remember, and, they were regular price was 10 cents. And remember, this candy bar was probably about twice the size of the ones today. Roughly. But, if they were on sale for 7 cents would be, standard. So for 7 cents, you bought that candy bar. And today, and if I told you at that time that the candy bar you bought 40 years or 46 years later, was going to cost you 10 times that, at least, and it was going to be half the size, you would have thought I was crazy. You would have thought there's no way. That's unimaginable. That's horrific. If a candy bar is that much, how much am I going to pay for housing? How much am I going to pay for a car? And on and on. And it would have been very shocking. But in fact, that's exactly what happened. So your currency relative to a Snickers candy bar has been reduced by 90-something% at least, considering the fact that it's half as big and costs 10 times as much, which is approximately a 1,000% increase in price. So in terms of the debasement of your currency, in that 44 years, 46 years later, it's been 90-something percent debasement in just that time. The problem is that everything's happening incrementally, and so each generation, or and those can be mini generations, let's say, every 10 years or so, everybody's got a new paradigm in reality. Say, yeah, I can remember 10 years ago what I paid for an apartment, and yeah, it's a bit more now. It's about twice as much. So, my currency's only gone down 50% in worth in that time, not 90 something. So you understand how this works. And each generation, they're working with a whole. They think, well, no, the dollar is whole. It has its whole value because that's all I know. That's all my mini generation understands is the worth of that dollar today. And so, what I'm trying to explain here is the dramatic debasement of our currency and how this is not incidental. This is quite contrived and deliberate. And the reason is because you can't steal the wealth of a nation with sound money. If the money is sound, it can't be debased. This is the whole thing. By nature, sound currency is stable. And if we had stable money, then these criminal types that are ruling over us, the other ones, the big fat elitist, hypocritical criminal thugs that rule over us, they couldn't rape the financial daylights out of us with sound money. So you see, it's imperative that these people keep this unsound money going, this unsound, illogical, up one side and down the other system that we're contending with. They want us confused. They want us disempowered. They want us deceived. They want us ignorant. They want you stupid. They want you dumbed down. And they really have been very successful up to this point. And it's so critical that people understand that when I talk about being deceived, this is not inherently bad. That's why God, in his mercy, in the original sin and the Garden of Eden, the fall of man, we were deceived. We were tricked. We were told a half-truth. We were told that if we ate from the tree of knowledge of good and evil, that we surely wouldn't die. But in fact, that was a lie. It was a half-truth. Adam and Eve thought, well, we're not going to die, so he's saying we're not going to die immediately, and that sounds right. Well, it doesn't look like it's going to kill me. It's not poisonous, whatever this fruit, this allegory, this metaphorical fruit was, okay, which I believe was this spreading of our seed where it didn't belong, okay? That's basically it, which would be akin to inbreeding with beings that we weren't supposed to. We were supposed to just stay with each other as humans and, avoid the knowledge of this tree of good and evil, whatever it was. But we got taken and we fell for this apple, and whatever that's a metaphor for, this apple, and we ate of the apple, the tree of knowledge of good and evil. And so, but God in his infinite mercy and grace did not condemn us. He repented of having created us. Whatever happened hurt him so much that it actually said he was sorry he had made us. And he repented for having created us. We hurt him very grievously, whatever happened. So that's why this thing is taking these thousands of years to play itself out. It's embedded. It's embedded in what science would call our DNA today. Nonetheless, God in his infinite mercy and grace began a plan of action to redeem us. And Jesus is a part of that plan. And he came at his appointed time, and he will return at his appointed time. So this thing will all play out the way God intended. In his own way, he will separate eventually the wicked from the righteous. Those are deliberately deceiving others from those that are deceived. I imagine that those that are deliberate deceivers are committing what's known as the unpardonable, unforgivable sin. And there's only one unforgivable sin. This is this blasphemy of the Holy Spirit of truth. I spent probably about close to an hour replying to a comment this morning on YouTube to a video I'd watched on Alex Jones' channel to this lady. And, in it I explained these things about the difference about being deceived and being a deceiver. Because anybody can be deceived. It's not a reflection on your moral uprightness or your intelligence level. Anybody can be deceived. It's simply believing a lie, a half-truth. So, we didn't die immediately by eating this fruit of the tree of knowledge of good and evil, but we did die eventually. Disease came in, and that's why we have death. And people could say, well, that's ridiculous because we need death because we'd overpopulate. But you're forgetting that we're talking about the Creator God Almighty that put everything in motion. The entire universe is at His will, okay? And he sets up the galaxies and the solar systems and all the habitable planets. He's the creator of everything. And nothing is beyond His potential, His power. So the idea that when the earth is populated to His satisfaction, He simply pools the fertility, the life force that He put in us, I mean, that's just one more miracle for this God. So don't worry, we're not going to overpopulate. That's not the point. But anyhow, death entered at that point, that we have diseases and eventually we have mortality. We enter the mortal phase of our existence instead of an immortal phase. But the immortal phase is due to come eventually at the return of Jesus and the renewal of all things. The separation of the wicked and the righteous, this great and terrible day of the Lord, this day of reckoning where these harvesters of the souls of men, these are the holy angels of God. And these are the ones that do the dirty work. They say, look, you haven't made it, and now I'm going to force you where you don't want to go, but you are not fit to be around decent humanity. Okay, decent humanity has earned the right to be free from you, to be free from all oppression. And, that's this place called heaven on earth. This is where, earth is going to be akin to heaven when God's will is done, when Jesus Christ rules over the affairs of men. And death is once again swallowed up in victory, and nothing bad exists. The curse is lifted upon humanity. Nothing is deadly anymore. And gravity is among those things that has to go. It is a very deadly force, and which brings me to a dream I initially didn't intend to talk about, but after thinking about it this morning while I was shaving, I did want to touch on it. And I had I woke up this morning to what was really a pretty serious nightmare. My heart wasn't racing, I wasn't sweating and anything like that, but what happened was I was having this dream that I was scaling this very dangerous building on either the inside of it, the outside. It looked like it was under construction, but it was very high up. And I've been afraid of heights for quite a while. I mean, not maybe as much as some people, but and I believe me, I've had my encounters with heights. I've climbed Half Dome. When back in the it was either the late 80s or the early 1990s, I took my daughters, who were young at that time, probably 7, 8, 9, something in that area. I took them up this what's called a mist trail in Yosemite National Park here in California. And it's this trail that goes from the valley floor. It goes one trail, John Muir Trail, up to the Vernal Falls, leads into this mist trail, which goes up into the Nevada Falls. And it's called the mist trail because when the falls are coming down, the prevailing breeze blows a lot of the moisture from the falls over to the side of the cliff, essentially the side of the mountain, which would be probably to the south side of the falls, where the trail is. And the trail gets very slick and slimy. And there's parts of it that are almost straight down with nothing to keep you from falling if you slipped, if you passed out or anything. And I had my daughters when they were young on this trail. And in retrospect, I've had one recurring nightmare after another of some terrible incident happening. And, this is probably where my dream stems from. But what happened in the dream was I was with my oldest daughter, Jennifer. She was to the left of me, and I was in front, and we were scaling to the right. I guess we were going somewhere, just like we were on the Mist Trail, going to Nevada Falls. But my younger daughter, Kristen, she was behind us, and she came out of nowhere, and she said, "Come on, you guys, I guess we were moving too slow, being really cautious." And